everyone, welcome back. I hope you're gonna enjoy this video. In this video, I'll be continuing and finishing series that I am in the middle of. I am excited for this because I need to get some series done, and making a video out of it seems easier somehow to get it done, because that way I have a purpose of reading those books, and otherwise I don't have a purpose of reading those books, well, except for enjoyment. But sometimes I just need a little extra encouragement, and that is what this video is for. So I hope you're gonna enjoy. I have 3 books in front of me that I'm gonna I'm gonna read, and one of them is the last book in the series, and the other ones are like second, third, fourth books in a series. So I have a second book in the series and a fourth book in the series. So that's basically the books. I'm gonna show them to you. First one, this is the second book in a series. It's the Playing for Keeps series, and this is Play With Me by Becca Mack. I've read the first book, originally rated it 5 stars, then upon further consideration, I was like, this ain't a 5 stars, it's more like a 4.75, but it was still really, really fucking good. So this book, this second book, I am so excited to continue it. I also own a third book. I don't own the fourth book yet because it just released like this month or last month, so I don't own that yet. But I want to get it, and maybe I'll film part 2 of this video and read the third book in the series, and maybe even the fourth book. Then we have Jasperville by Daphne Perry. This is the 4th book in the, I'm not even sure what the series is called. Is it called the Indigo Ridge series? Because the first book is called Indigo Ridge, so maybe it's called the Indigo Ridge series. No, it's called the Edens. It even says so on the cover. Oh my god. Okay, so the Eden series, I read the third book like a few weeks ago, and I enjoyed that. I gave it 3 stars, I think, because the first like 100 pages got me angry. Those got me mad. I was really debating on rating it a 2-star or not even finishing it the first 100 pages, but then it got a little better. So I'm curious to see if this will be any better or if this will be even worse. I've heard some people say that it's better. I've heard some people say that it's worse than the third book. I'm just curious. I want to see what I think about it, so this book. And then lastly, the book that finishes off a series, which I'm so glad for, is Kate by Tay James. This is the Medicine Kate series. I read the first, second, and third book. I read them pretty much back to back, but it has been like a month since I finished those. So I need to get to it before I forget what the whole plot was about, and that is very necessary. So Medicine Kate series is actually very interesting. I really enjoyed the first book, and then it kind of went a little bit downhill, but not too much. Like the lowest rated book was the third book for me, and that was a 3.75, so it's still not bad. But I hope that this will be good. So we'll see what happens. Also, these are all romance books, so maybe I'll make this finishing series I'm in the middle of romance edition, because I read pretty much only romance, and these are just strictly romance, so maybe I'll do that. I think I'm gonna start with Play With Me by Becca Mack, because that is the one that I'm most excited for, but it is also one of the longest books on the stack, because Kate is also around 500 pages, but Play With Me is also around 500 pages. So I want to start off with a long book and then end it off with a short book. So first of all, Play With Me. I think then I'll go for Kate and then Jasperville. This book is about Garrett and Jenny, and I don't even know who these characters are anymore. Let me just be honest with you right now. So I guess we'll figure it out. That is the good thing with, like, what is called interconnected standalones, because that way you can read them separately if you want, and you can also read them in order, but you don't have to remember the first book in order to read the second book. That was like the perfect solution for me, because I forget what I've read the second I close the book. I'm gonna start this one. I'm excited. Yeah, that's all I have to say. I do hope that this is maybe a bit more slow burn, because the first book wasn't slow burn, and then and in the book they were just happy skipping around. That's all they were doing, and I like that. Like, I gave it a 4.75, honestly, but I think this may have the potential to be 5 stars, so I hope that it will happen. I thought I would do a check-in, because I have read quite some chapters of Play With Me by Becca Mack. I am really, really enjoying this book. Like, it's not a 5-star, which is kind of a little bit disappointing, but you know, it is what it is. I wrote some thoughts down, and I hope I'm remembering them correctly. Because there were quite some thoughts that I wanted to share with you all. So first off, I said that when I started this book, I didn't remember who the characters were that we were following in this book. And when I got into it, it was pretty much explained very smoothly. Like, I remembered stuff. Like, Garrett is a teammate, Jenny is the sister of the male main character in the first book, Carter. So Jenny, we're following Jenny, the sister of the male main character in Consider Me. And yeah, I remembered things. I started remembering things when I was into it. I started reading it and I was like, oh yeah, so this is what happened then. This is what happened then. I wasn't confused at all, which I'm very, very glad for, because I didn't want to be confused. I didn't want to be confuzzled. So I'm very glad that that happened. Also, like Carter, I really liked Carter in the first book, obviously, because I rated it really highly. But I like him a little bit less in this book because he's like very, very protective of his sister Jenny, and he doesn't want any male to go even within like 5 meters of her. So it's very, very he's very overprotective, very overbearing. And I'm not sure if I like that much, because he's like, no man can have her. No man's good enough for her. Like, she's too young, blah, 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 blah. Which is, I don't know, kind of overbearing to me, and he's acting kind of a little bit childish, and I read in some reviews that people also said that that was what they thought about him, and I agree, but I still like him enough, but I still don't like him as much as I did in the first book. I really like Olivia, though, the female character in the first book. I really like her. I think the cameos that we're getting are very, very cute. Very glad that we're getting those. Like Garrett, the male main character in this book, he's kind of awkward. That mostly came along in like the first 100 pages, I think, of this book, when Jenny and him weren't really talking at all. And I found it kind of awkward for me as well. Like, he was awkward, but I found it kind of cringe, because I was like, it's too much. It's too much. Like, why are you so awkward? Like, I understand you can be awkward, and that's completely fine. But some of the things that he did, I was like, no, like, how can you go from this to that? It just doesn't make sense. But I also thought it was cute, but it went on a little too long, got a little too much for me, and I got kind of annoyed after a while. But once the relationship really started progressing between Jenny and Garrett, that didn't go away completely, but kind of lessened. So I'm very glad that that happened again, because that would have lowered the rating significantly if that hadn't changed. And Jenny's also kind of awkward, and the things she does when it's an awkward situation, cringe. Those are kind of cringe, and I was like, oh, am I reading this correctly? Like, this is no, this is just not it. And then I was like, no one in real life would act this way ever. No one. That is completely that's not realistic. That's unrealistic. Even though the characters aren't perfect, I'm not here for the characters to be perfect. I think the characters are entertaining. I think this is a fun book, and that's what I'm here for at the end of the day. I'm not here for like a literary masterpiece. I'm here for a fun time. So yeah, for the rest, I'm really enjoying this book. I feel like this is gonna be a 4-star read the way it's looking right now, but it could change maybe later on. But I'm on page 188, chapter 17, and there's like 528 pages in this book. So a lot can change in that time. But for now, that's, I think, all I wanted to say. I will update you when I can and when I have some thoughts. And I'm just going to continue reading. So see ya later, I guess. Okay, so I finished Play With Me, but first off, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's it about, what's the plot line, because I don't think I have actually told you yet. So it's basically about Jenny and Garrett. Jenny is really struggling with letting people in, and she doesn't want a relationship because she has been hurt in the past, and basically she moves into this apartment complex, and guess what? Garrett also lives in that apartment complex. So they kind of strike up this situationship eventually, which happens pretty fast. I think I also said that it happened like in the first 100 pages, so that it's very fast. Basically that happens, and that is what happens to the whole entire book, and it's yeah, I enjoyed it. I gave it a 3.75 or a 4. I'm not entirely sure. But I think I want to give it a 4 because I really enjoyed the first book, but I didn't enjoy this book, which was a huge surprise because I mostly heard positive things about this one and negative things about Consider Me. And people that said they didn't enjoy Consider Me enjoyed this one. But for me, it's the other way around. And I don't know what happened, but it happened. So that's basically what the plot is following. Jenny's trying to open up, and Garrett is trying to be more open about his feelings, talk through his feelings, instead of showing that he's feeling something through acts of service, which is totally okay as well. But he just wants to be more open with his words. So that's what the plot is about. But basically, Carter, the main character in the first book, I already mentioned this, he's so childish. Like, it gets worse throughout the whole book. Like, the further you get into the book, the worse it gets. Like, it's not okay. And that was such a disappointment because I really enjoyed him in the first book. But in this book, he was I kind of hated him, kind of despised him. I knew there was going to be conflict because he's overprotective, so Jenny and Garrett are trying to hide the relationship from him because Garrett is his teammate, and he keeps saying that no one is worthy enough for his sister, blah, 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 blah. So they try to hide it, but the moment that he finds out, he acts so freaking childish, but he does something I'm like, you just made everyone go. You just made everyone go, oh my god, am I in the wrong here? Well, they're not in the wrong, and I was like, that was not good, not gonna lie. Also, what kind of bothered me, like, I wouldn't exaggerate and say every other page, but a lot of times in this book, people were talking with food in their mouth, and they were just talking gibberish, and I was like, why does it happen so much? Like, one time, two times, fine, in the span of a 500-page book. But no, it happened like 6 million times in the span of a 500-page book. That's a little too much. That's a little too dramatic, don't you think? Overall, I did enjoy this book. It was way too long, I'm gonna be honest. Way too long for what it is. This could have been 150 pages shorter, to be honest. I don't know. I enjoyed it, but I am really, really disappointed that I didn't enjoy it as much as I hoped I would. I still have the third book. I'm not going to read that in this video, but I'm probably going to read it in the next video, I think, or maybe I'll just post a review about it. Also, as I already said, talking with their mouth full, that's very repetitive to me, like how many times it happened. But that's not the only thing that was repetitive. Like, there were a lot more things that were repetitive. And I'm just saying negative things, but I don't think this book is bad at all. I just think it's not the best book that there is out there. Not the best romance book, especially for this length of a book. But repetitive things. So basically, Jenny, the main character, okay, she can feel insecure, you know? Like, it's completely fine to feel insecure. It's basically like, she feels good about herself, then she feels bad about herself, and she is mad at herself or something like that. Then she shuts down. They make up. It's okay. Then she shuts down again, and that for like a good 200 pages. And I was like, bring them a little more action into the story. And then when that part was over, they were just happy. I wanted a little more conflict, but not the same kind of conflict, because in this length of book, you need to have more substance. The spicy scenes, though, there were a lot of spicy scenes, which I did enjoy. Like, for the amount of spice, a 5 out of 5. That's definitely it, because I think in this whole book there were like 10 spicy scenes. I'm not even exaggerating. And then for the type of spice that there was, I would rate it like a 3 out of 5 maybe. But I also read dark romances, so I debated on giving it 2 out of 5 because it is very, like, I don't want to say vanilla, but like lighter compared to Haunting and Lime, for example. Okay, so enjoy this book. Let's get on to the next book. I think I'm gonna start with Jasperville because I'm not into reading another 500-page book at the moment. I want to read a quick book. So I'm picking up Jasperville next. Say hi to Mickey. Okay, so basically I've been reading Jasperville. I am almost halfway, actually. Look at that. I've read this much and I have this much left. I'm getting through this very, very easily. It's a very easy read. I'm not surprised by that because this is the 4th book in the series. I've read the 3 previous books. Those were also very, very easy to read. But I do have some complaints. Like, it's good for what it is, because I didn't expect this to be a 4-star. It's like more like a 3-star, maybe for being precise, a 3.25 star, somewhere around that range. So I do have... Jackson, what are you doing? Say hi to the camera. Say hi to the camera. So the characters in this book, there are cameos of the characters and couples in the previous books, which is usually the case with interconnected standalones. So usually when I enjoy a series, when I enjoy books in a series, I'm so happy when I get to see cameos of the previous couples. I'm like, oh my god, I get so giddy and excited. But when I see cameos of these couples, I just feel nothing at all. I'm like, okay, fine, let's move on. So that kind of means that I don't feel anything towards these characters, especially when I finish the book. When I'm reading the book, I don't feel a whole lot to them as it is. But when I finish the book, I'm like, okay, I completely forgot about these characters. They're like fun, again, fun for what they are. They're fun for they're the way they should be for me. They're perfect for the mood that I'm in. I love getting a 5-star read. I love getting a 5-star read, but I know that I'm not getting that when I'm reading these kind of books. But it's just, fun time. What I also would have liked if this book was a bit more fleshed out. And what I mean by that is there are certain situations that happen in this book, and then they get, I don't want to say resolved, but they get talked through. But that all happens behind the scenes, basically. Like, you get to know what that's what happened through talking and not showing, through explaining it. That is only like for 3 sentences. But that's all I have to say for now. I'm just going to continue reading. I think I'm going to update when I finish the book or when I'm almost finished. I don't know. We'll see. Did I say I would update when I finish the book? Yes, I did. I did. I really, really did. I lied. I am over halfway right now. I have about 120 pages left. So that's not a lot. But Jasper is pissing me off. He's pissing me off. He's so annoying. Okay, so he wasn't putting any effort in. He was just grumpy, but not like the fun kind of grumpy. Like the grumpy kind that is just annoying and incredibly rude. And I was like, why? And then when there was supposed to be a reason, the reason wasn't a reason at all. It doesn't excuse how he acted. Like I want to beat his ass. I wouldn't, because he's a fighter. Well, he's a trainer for fighters. I wouldn't beat him up because I would get my ass kicked. But it's the thought that counts. This book, the rating lowers, and it got a little better, to be honest. Like, it was like a 50-page period that it happened. Got a little better, but not enough. So I'm feeling like this is a 2.75 rating now. That could still change. Also, what I don't like is, this happens in a lot of romance books. Like, this is not the only book that it happens in, where they're like, oh, this character, like the love interest, doesn't like me like that. Then all the signs point to the fact that they do like them like that. And I'm like, what? Like, it should be obvious. Could just be because I'm reading it from their point of view. But it's, I know there is supposed to be some tension, like, oh, I don't know if they like me like that. But not when all the signs are pointing to the fact, when they've known each other for a while, when all the signs are pointing to the fact that they like each other and no one does anything about it. And it causes a conflict. Eats me up inside. It eats me. That was a little over the top. A little dramatic, Sarah, a little dramatic. But yeah, that's what I'm feeling at the moment. I'm feeling mostly anger towards this book. Towards this book. Overall, it's fine. It's a fun time. Like, that hasn't changed. It's a fun time. But just not feeling the character Jasper right now. Alright, so I have indeed finished Jasper Vale by Daphne Perry. I'm gonna go into the fact that I didn't really like this book. I rated it 2.75 stars. But I wanted to tell you what the story was about, basically, because I haven't told you that yet. So basically, Jasper and Eloise, they make a drunken mistake. They get married in Vegas, and they want to get a divorce, but then they decide to have a mutual beneficial agreement to stay married for a few months and then get a divorce. So they both benefit from that situation for different reasons. Eloise's one was a little bit more valid, but still, it was a reason for Jasper as well. We're basically following that story as they progress in their relationship, as they talk more. But the communication was shit, so they don't really talk that much. But that's basically the plot of this book. So as I said, communication is shit. Like, where was it? There wasn't anything being communicated, not only with the relationship. There wasn't anything being communicated with Eloise and her parents either. Like, there was some things happening where Eloise felt bad about, and at the end of the book, I expected to get an explanation for that, or like a sorry or an apology, and like a reasoning for that. We didn't get that, which was confusing to say the least, because I felt like her parents owed her that, but they didn't give it to her, and she didn't ask for it either. So I was like, that kind of left open, and I wanted it to be closed because that feels more nice. And also the communication between Jasper and her parents were shit. It just kind of took a turn suddenly. Like, there was a reason why it took a turn. That is the plot twist in this book. But still, I would have liked more communication, which wasn't in this book at all. I thought Jasper had more personality in Garnet Flats than he did in this book. I was actually excited for his book in Garnet Flats because I was like, oh wow, he's a fun character. Like, he has some personality. In this book, he had zero personality. He was just like a grump, and that's still personality. But also, it fell flat. Like, it fell really, really flat. I think those were all my thoughts on this one. Now I have already started Kate. I am 45 pages in on chapter 5, and this is a thick book. It's more than 500 pages, but I hope to get through it in like 3 days' time. I need to read today because I haven't read today yet. I read some yesterday evening because I finished Jasperville, and then I decided to read some of this one. The last book ended on a cliffhanger, like a huge cliffhanger. That got resolved like 20 pages in this book. I was like, wait. That could have had a little more tension. I could have like liked it more at the beginning if that was tension filled, which it wasn't, and I expected it to be. That's all my thoughts so far. I haven't read much of it yet, so I will update you when I have some more thoughts. But for now, I am enjoying it. I hope this story is a little bit more action-packed than the last 2 books in the series, because they all follow like a steady storyline. But it got kind of boring and repetitive because things were just repeating itself. The series, I think, could have been a trilogy, but we'll see how I feel about that once I have actually made some progress in this book. Okay, so... Alright, so I've been reading for a while now. I'm now on page 214, 215, somewhere around that range. I am enjoying it, but it's very low-key, if you know what I mean. Not a lot happens but when things happen, it's fucked up. I'm like, ooh, this is making me kind of a little bit nauseous, not gonna lie. Continue right where the 3rd book left off, and that's where the story continues. We're still having the little crime situation going on, and I think that only gets solved like in the last 100 pages maybe. It is good, but this could have been a trilogy, honestly. Like, it feels like this is being dragged out way too much. And besides that, I don't really have any thoughts because, again, not a lot happens. Not a lot that I can talk to you about because I already know these characters. I already know their personalities. So I'm, like, I don't remember much about the first book. Like, I remember what it was, what the feeling that it gave me. But for the rest, I cannot tell you much about it, except for what I already said. I'm not sure if I said anything about this book, actually. That's besides the point. Besides that, yeah, again, don't have many thoughts. It's just a fun ride. I feel like this is like a 3.5 at the moment. I am, I think, like 45% of the way through this book. I hope to get like at least 2/3 done today. I'm just gonna continue reading now because that's the only thing that I can do in this moment. So let's do it. Alright, so I changed clothes, but I finished Kate, as you probably saw. So, I gave this a 3-star rating, not anything less, not anything more than that. The 3rd book in the series is the 4th book, as I've mentioned a ton of times before. The 3rd book in the series, I think I gave that a 3.9, but this one was just, I'm gonna be honest, boring. It was a little boring. Not a lot happened, and when a lot happened, it got really exciting, but then my attention was already gone because it was kind of boring for most parts of the book. My previous thoughts still stand. This book could have easily been 200 pages less, and I'm not even exaggerating when I say 200 pages. I kind of calculated, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this could have been 200 pages less. Like, things were dragged out so much, which wasn't necessary at all, but it was still a fine book. I still enjoyed it. It was still a fun time to read. There was an underlying mystery going on in this book, in the previous book, in the book before that, in the book before that. So since the first book, there was an underlying mystery plot. We finally got to see that, like, the climax of the story, and that was so satisfying to read about, because I was like, oh, finally we're there. And honestly, didn't expect that. I didn't expect that. That was the last thing that I expected, but it happened, and it was the situation. In the first book, there were some things mentioned about the characters, like some, I don't want to say world building because it's not fancy, but like some character building, I guess, like building of characters, like telling a little bit about each character. There was a little bit said about it, and like very briefly at the end of this book, it got mentioned again, but it has been so long, well, not so long, it has been like 2 months, maybe 3 months since I read the first book, so I was a little confused at that. It could have been mentioned throughout the whole series instead of just in the first book and at the end of this one, because it got really confusing for me since I've already read 2 books in between that, and it's just not, no. But for the rest, it was an enjoyable time, a little bit boring. This just continues the story of the previous books. That's it. But for the rest, enjoyable time. So, that is it for this video. I'm just gonna do a quick wrap-up of what I read this week. Exactly 7 days, like I counted. I just checked what date I filmed the first clip on. It was exactly 7 days ago. Yeah, I'm very proud of myself for reading 3 books in 7 days. So first book that I read was Play With Me by Becca Mack. This was an enjoyable read, a little disappointing compared to the first one in the series, which I gave 5 stars. Changed my rating to 4.75, you know what I mean, I already mentioned it. 3.75 was a decent rating, but honestly, if I hadn't given the first book such a high rating, it probably would have been a 3.5 instead. It was still enjoyable, but again, a little boring. Nothing really happened to me, in my opinion. Then I read Jasperville, which was kind of disappointing, but I already kind of a little bit expected it, honestly, because I didn't enjoy Garden Flats, but I still had hope that I would enjoy this one more, but I didn't. Ended up giving it a 2.75 star rating. It was fine, but I didn't enjoy Jasper. And then the last one just talked about is Kate by Tate James. I won't talk anymore about it, except that I gave it 3 stars. That is the stack of finishing series I'm in the middle of. I finished one series, which I'm very happy about. I want to get into the other series that Tate James wrote in the same universe. I'm excited. Like, even though I didn't enjoy this book as much as I enjoyed the first book, I'm still excited to read that series because that has gotten very good reviews as well. And then I continued 2 series. So, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more of me, subscribe and like this video. And if you want to see more of me doing a finishing series or continuing series I'm in the middle of, also mention it, because that means that I can, like, do that and have, like, motivation to do that. So I, again, hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you later. So goodbye and see ya later. Bye-bye.